Setting up your new acoustic drum kit can be quite a daunting task. There's lots of bits to assemble and they rarely come with any form of instructions. In this video we're going to set up and unbox a Ludwig Accent drum kit. So first of all, let's get it all out of the boxes. Once everything is out of the boxes, lay all the items out so you can see that you've got everything that you should have. Depending on the kit you've bought, you should have drums, cymbals, hardware. This includes things like cymbal stands, a snare stand, a bass pedal, a hi-hat stand, and if you're lucky enough to have one, a stool. Depending on how the kit has been boxed up, you may also have a pack of drum heads, a hoop protector for the bass drum, and little screws called tension rods, along with some bass drum claws. These are the things that are going to hold your drum heads in place when inserted into the holes in the hoops. Depending on the kit that you've purchased, you may also get some spare parts. With this Ludwig Accent kit, we have a couple of spare tension rods, a tension rod receiver which goes inside one of the lugs on the drum in case one's failed, and a pot of grease. Before you start assembling your drum kit, there are a few items that you should make sure that you have. A drum key. Some kits come with one of these. Some kitchen roll. I'll explain more later. Some gaffer tape. If you have some, a pot of multi-purpose grease. Some kits will come with this. Oh, and also a pillow. The tension rods and claws in the bags at the bottom are for the bass drum. The smaller tension rods in the bag at the top are for the toms. Some kits will come with the hoops partially screwed to the drum. You need to remove these hoops, so undo the tension rods and remove the hoops. I'm using an electronic screwdriver here just to speed things up a bit. Then remove all packaging. Next, take out your drum heads and figure out which head goes with which drum. Each drum should have 2 heads. Again, depending on the kit you've purchased, the heads may be slightly different. In general, the head that you hit, which is called the batter head, will be thicker, and the head that goes on the bottom, which is called the resonant head, will be thinner. Place the head on the drum, then place the hoop over the head. Take a tension rod and dip it ever so slightly into the grease. Put the tension rod through the hole in the hoop and twist it a few times. Once all the tension rods have been inserted, you need to do them all up finger tight. You can either simply do this with your fingers, or you can use the drum key until you feel some resistance. Push down on the drum head slightly to stretch it and start doing up the tension rods. It's very important to do the tension rods up in an opposite manner. By doing this, it makes sure that the drum head goes down onto the edge of the drum nice and flat. This particular drum is a floor tom, so once I've put the heads on, I'm going to insert the legs. Repeat this procedure for all of the drums except the bass drum. Remove the hoops and any packaging. Make sure that the legs are positioned at the front of the drum. This is where you fit the resonant head, generally the head that has the large logo on it. The other head will often be clear and it may have a small logo on it. This is known as the batter head, the side of the drum that the beater of the bass drum makes contact with. Be sure that the part of the drum that has the holes and hardware to install the toms is at the top. So let's put on the resonant head. Grab one of the hoops and place it over the top of the drum head. Next, get the bass drum claw and the long tension rods that we saw earlier. Insert the tension rod into the hole in the bass drum claw. Then dip the very end of the tension rod in the grease. Slide the claw over the bass drum hoop. Then insert the tension rod into the hole and screw it up a few times with your fingers. Repeat this procedure for every claw and tension rod. Just be careful not to do them up too tight at this point. Just a couple of turns. Next, remove any of the excess grease. This next part is optional, but for me it's essential. Make sure that the logo on the resonant head is straight. If it's not, simply undo a few of the tension rods and twist the head until it becomes straight. Now make sure that all the tension rods are done up finger tight. Just simply twist them all with your fingers until they won't go up any tighter. Once this is done, grab a hold of your drum key. Now this next bit's really important. Make sure that when we're doing the drum head up with a drum key, we go in an opposite manner, the same as when we did this with the toms. I like to start with one tension rod, go to the opposite tension rod, and then from that point go to the next tension rod, then the opposite of that one. Kind of like a star shape. Once the resonant head is tensioned, let's turn the drum over and start on the batter head. Don't forget to put your pillow inside the drum first. The reason for this is a drum without a pillow in it sounds very boomy and big. And often when a drum kit's being played at home, we don't really want it to be super big and loud. So this pillow helps to dull the sound down a little bit. It also gives it a great rock bass drum sound. Repeat the steps from earlier to fit the batter head. Next, it's time to install the bass drum hoop protector if you got one with the kit. It's simply a case of peel off the paper to reveal the sticky pad and stick it in the correct place on the bass drum hoop. This just protects the hoop from the bass drum pedal and also helps the pedal fit better. Next, unscrew and drop down the bass drum legs. You may need to lengthen the bottom part of the leg. Ideally, the bottom of the bass drum hoop won't make contact with the floor. Before putting the bass pedal on the drum, it might be a good idea to check the spring tension. Sometimes when they come out of the box, the springs aren't quite tight enough. It's really a case of undoing the nuts and tightening it so the spring gets tighter and then making sure the nuts are done up again. Of course, this varies from pedal to pedal. This next bit can be a bit fiddly and dependent on the pedal that you have. Undo the big wing nut on the pedal, then lift the back of the drum up slightly. Slide the pedal over the hoop and the hoop protector, then do up the wing nut nice and tight, making sure the pedal stays straight. Now it's time to put the tom arms on. Unscrew the wing nuts and insert the tom arms into the bass drum. Here comes another potentially fiddly bit. Some tom arms are fitted with memory locks. These are to help keep the toms in place and to stop them falling down onto the bass drum. Also, if you ever take the kit apart, they're quite handy as they show you what position your toms were in. We'll come back to the memory locks in a minute. Put the toms on the tom arms. These are now miles too high, so we're going to have to try and drop them down and angle them to be at a good angle for playing. This is where we go back to those memory locks, because those are currently in our way. It's quite fiddly, but you have to undo these, move them up, and then lower down the arms that the toms sit on. Once this is done, be sure to do up those memory locks again. And that's all the drums put together. So now it's time to focus on the hardware. Undo the legs of the snare stand. Then undo the basket. It might need undoing slightly so it's wide enough to accept the snare. Place the snare in the basket, making sure it's the correct way round. Generally, the badge on the drum wants to be facing away from you, and quite often the snare strainer, this is the bit where you can turn the snare wires on and off, will be on the left hand side. Once the snare's in place, do up the basket. If you want to, tune the drum to your desired pitch. Now it's on to the hi-hat stand. This will vary on the make and model of kit that you've got. When you put on the cymbal felts, make sure that the metal one goes on the bottom and the soft one goes closest to the cymbal. Locate the ends of the metal rods in the holes in the base of the pedal. Now it's time to fit the cymbals. Simply place the bottom hi-hat on the stand. It's good to note here that some kits will have a bottom and top hi-hat. It could be printed on the cymbal or just feel which one feels heavier. Generally, the bottom one will be the heaviest. Now for a fiddly bit. It's time to assemble the hi-hat clutch. This is the part that holds the top cymbal on the stand. You'll probably need to take it apart first. When you do this, try to remember the order that the cymbal felts were in, because this is generally the order they're going to go back in. Insert the main part of the clutch into the top hi-hat. Then on the underside of the cymbal, put on the soft felt first and then the metal felt second. Then screw up the circular nut. Once this is assembled, put the top hi-hat onto the hi-hat stand. The hi-hats need to have a gap between them. There's several ways you can make this happen, but one of those ways is just by pushing down on the rod ever so slightly, then doing up the clutch. The gap between the hi-hats only wants to be quite small. Open out the bases of any cymbal stands you have and fit the cymbals in a similar way to the hi-hat, with the soft felt touching the cymbal. And that's everything constructed. So now let's get the kit in place. You'll see from this video how you should set up a right-handed drum kit. If you're a left-handed drummer, simply swap over the position of the hi-hat, snare and floor tom, and the two toms in the bass drum will go the other way round. Also, you might want to have your crash ride on the other side. Here's what the Ludwig Accent kit sounds like, recorded through one room microphone with no effects. It's also worth noting that the kit has had very minimal tuning and absolutely no deadening apart from a pillow in the bass drum. If you want to get rid of some of that ringing, here's a little tip for you. That kitchen roll we talked about earlier, grab a hold of that and grab a hold of some of that gaffer tape. Fold the kitchen roll into a small square or rectangle, then stick it down with some of the gaffer tape. This will stop the head from ringing so much and give you a shorter sound. That's the snare as it came out of the box with no deadening. So let's try adding this kitchen roll and gaffer tape. That's just been recorded through one microphone, but what a difference. And that's it. The acoustic kit is now fully set up and ready to play. Acoustic kits are very loud, so make sure you protect your ears while playing. Thanks for watching. I hope that's been helpful. I'm Tom from DrumWise.